Good afternoon, colleagues. I think we will go ahead and get started. I know it's the end of a long day for many of you, so really appreciate you being here. And I think we have colleagues joining us online as well. So hopefully they are hearing us and seeing us. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this HNPW session on streamlined coordination, stronger outcomes, supporting local leadership and area-based coordination approaches. My name is Kaylin Briggs. I'm the head of interagency coordination for the Norwegian Refugee Council, and I will be moderating today's discussion. We are here this afternoon to talk about how coordination has evolved over the past 12 months after what I think is safe to say has been a fairly eventful year in the interagency space, to put it mildly. But I actually want to maybe start by taking us one step further back, even before the funding crisis, before the humanitarian reset, when I think there was already a recognition that coordination needed to change, that it was in many cases too heavy, sometimes too UN-centric, and sometimes simply not fit for purpose. There had been attempts to address this in previous years. The flagship initiative was one of them. The ERC's request to Jan Egeland and Joyce Masuya for recommendations on streamlining was another. And I think what we saw in practice in 2025 was that the funding crisis and the humanitarian reset really dramatically accelerated the pace of change in a way that perhaps none of us had anticipated at the start of the year. HCs were empowered to adapt coordination as they saw fit for their context. And I think they ran with a way that we hadn't seen before in many cases. Area-based coordination was placed more explicitly on the table as an option. And we saw that local leadership of coordination was again reaffirmed as absolutely critical, but now also repositioned as something that should be the default, not something that happens as an afterthought. Operations really moved at different speeds and in different directions with this space. And I think it's also probably safe to say that they moved faster than we did at the global level, both by design and out of necessity. So part of the reason I'm really excited for today's discussion as someone that does sit in the global level is to really have the chance to hear from my colleagues on the panel and to hear from all of you about how this is playing out on the ground. We also know that in many cases, these new coordination models were in fact not so new. That in many places, we had civil society organizations that were already coordinating informally at local level, even if it wasn't called area-based coordination. We had local leaders that were already leading the way at the front lines and in the response, even before there was this new emphasis on it as part of the reset. So I think my hope as one silver lining of all of the chaos of last year is that we at least now have the space to really recognize all of the important work that has already been done on this, see how we can build on it and support it in a way that is more intentional than we had perhaps done as a system in the past. As I said, I think at global level, we're perhaps playing a bit of catch up now. Gemma and I are co-leading a task force that's looking at sort of some materials that we can make available on area-based coordination to support operations that are sort of earlier on this pathway. There's other groups at the global level that are looking at local leadership, looking at complementarity within the system. And I hope I speak for all of those groups in saying we really want whatever comes out of that to be grounded in your experiences, your expertise, and what's been done on the ground. So to that end, we were originally hoping that today's discussion would be quite an informal roundtable. The layout of this room doesn't really allow for the round component of that, but I hope we can keep a bit the spirit of informality and really have a candid exchange about your experiences, what's working well, where the challenges have been, and where it would be helpful to have support, but also where you want us to just stay out of your way, which I think is a really valid option as well. I am joined by some very distinguished colleagues on the panel. So I will just run through introducing them. And then I think what I would propose to do, since again, we don't have kind of the roundtable setup, is maybe we'll do just a couple rounds with the colleagues up here, and then invite all of you to also come in and share your experiences. So I'll actually start with our first panelist who is joining us online, who I hope maybe we can pull up on the screen, Samira Nouri, who is the Executive Director of Citizens Organization for Advocacy and Resilience, COAR, in Afghanistan. Welcome, Samira. I'm very pleased to have you with us. Then Alexandra Sasha Buglak, the Deputy Director of the Humanitarian NGO Platform in Ukraine. To my left, Dr. DeJoseph Kakisingi, National Focal Point and Coordinator of CONAFOD in DRC. Welcome. To my right, Faiza Al-Tamimi, Director of Nahda Makers Organization in Yemen. And finally, Gemma Connell, Chief of the Strategic Prioritization and Practices Branch at UN OCHA in Geneva. So welcome, colleagues. Thank you so much for being here today. I think maybe to just set the scene a little bit, I would like to put the same question to all of you to kick us off in just sharing some of your experiences on what you've seen in your context, how coordination has changed for you over the past year, what you've seen in terms of changes in structures and capacities and in leadership. What shifts essentially have you seen in your context? Gemma, when I come to you, I'll maybe just invite you to give the bird's eye view on some of the changes, but I'll turn first perhaps to Samira online. Samira, please go ahead. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to everyone. It's a great pleasure to be part of this discussion. As I'm part of already the humanitarian reset task team at national level, and also part of this regional level with the other local actors that they are part of the humanitarian reset in their own countries. So I learned a lot, and also it's been more than a decade that I'm working in this sector. So before this current humanitarian reset discussion that's happening globally and also in my country, like when it comes to Afghanistan, like Afghanistan already had developed the relatively extensive coordination ecosystem over the past decades. This includes all of those cluster system at national level, regional level, and also the coordination platforms among the national NGOs, and also the strong engagement from the local civil society actors supporting information sharing and also operational coordination across the provinces. So, and also there were the national NGO networks and platforms that played a very important role in connecting the local responders with the formal humanitarian coordination architecture, particularly bringing those field level perspective to the national coordination discussion, and also facilitation and collaboration among the local national actors at different level. However, the over the past the time, like the coordination landscape became very heavy and also very layered with the multiple meetings, reporting requirements, and also parallel structures, and establishment of different working groups as well. It was just because that these all mechanism in my country designed that to improve more accountability and also the information flow. But sometimes these all too many meetings, reporting, different types of reporting really create a significant participation burden, especially for the local national NGOs. For example, myself, I was part of, like, I spared my time, more than 50% of my time I spared for these meetings, just because I had no one in my organizations to represent my organization in different platforms. So I have to be part of all those cluster meetings, different working groups, even advisory groups. Even now I am part of different those platforms that I have to represent my organization, just because I don't have enough staff to allocate for different clusters to attend the meetings. So these all burden the local actors, like organization, like my organization is a very big organization working in Afghanistan since long time. It's been 35 years. But when an organization like my organization that has a very long history and background, they don't have enough staff. So what about those small NGOs that they cannot be part of this platform just because they don't have enough staff to participate. So this is where like the current humanitarian research conversation become very relevant to this all heavy structures that we had previously, just because this shrinking of funds really and resource that and increasing operational complexity and also that now there is a strong push globally to make this coordination lighter, faster, and also more efficient, while all strengthen like, and also there's discussion to strengthen the local leadership and ownership. But in the meantime, in Afghanistan, like this recent discussion on coordination reform that including the adjustment to regional coordination structure and also effort to better link the humanitarian and basic need programs. But at the end, the question is that lots of things happening, and even there are so many layers that they put the local actors in this platform, in this architecture. But the main question is about the practicality, if this could be really implemented. And if this is about to implement that, they should have a very simplified architecture, and also shift of the leadership to local actors. But again, the question comes that will the local actor will have the overall resources to support this coordination platforms and to lead this coordination platform, and also will they have the financial support and capacity shift. So this is how the system, the coordination system is working now. And also this recent humanitarian discussion is happening, which is not yet implemented, but we're looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samira. I really appreciate that initial context, and I'm going to come back to you in a few minutes with some follow-up questions. So thank you very much, and I might turn to Sasha now to tell us about the coordination changes in Ukraine. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, it feels like Samira have my talking points. Literally everything what Samira was saying, it was technically the same in Ukraine. So it's still a coordination system more designed for the international actors rather for the people who really implement it. It's still, even we have a lot of local NGOs and volunteers group, it's still, they are first responders, but they are not in a position when they make decision, I will lead coordination. And I think the main and very, very reflected in Ukraine, it's about resources, because yes, with in the last year with humanitarian reset, we really, I would say on a paper as a structure, we really create a lighter structure as it was before humanitarian architecture. So before we had a much more, let's say, working groups who, if saying practically, yes, so one working with convoys, one working with intercluster coordination. So now it is really changed on subnational level of coordination. So which is more empowered the new established group, which is incorporate many others. But in the same time, this is exactly about resources. Yeah, on a paper, in reality, it is more local or NGO involved into coordination rather than before it was clusters or UN agency representatives. But we back to resources. So because this is local NGO, when it was an open election process to become a coordinator or subnational coordinator. And I would say that local actors was shocked when they came to us and said, like, we didn't know that we need to work for 8 hours every two days, not weeks even. They said, like, and we still have our operation, because it's not a coordination position. It's just regular area manager or head of programs in the local organization who now take lead on coordination. So it's mean all quality of response in this organization falling down, or like they need to not input their time and effort into coordination. I think it's overall, when we talk in coordination, it's a bit undermines how much time it's need to just run a meeting. Because it's not just to come and to talk, you need to understand what is the opinions around, to collect them, to understand what is really needed, to hear it, and then to back with this feedback. So back to shorten this and or summarize. So yeah, it is changes over the last year in Ukraine about the lighter structure. We have a ABC, and we will, I believe, talk later a bit more on area-based coordination models. It is all in place, but the question of resources, and it's money as well as salary for this position. Yeah, so like it's a salary, it's a human resource, time resource. So this is a big unanswered question. Like, do we prioritize local actors involved into coordination? But exactly as Samira said, like, but who will pay for this in a big size, pay for time and money for this?
Thanks so much. I think these are really important points, which we definitely do need to come back to. So I appreciate you setting us up for that. To Joseph, please.
Thank you. In our country, as you know, we have complex contexts with the country divided in two. One part is under de facto authority and the other under the legal government. So this is a particular situation, and we need to adapt our coordination, our work, having this in mind. So before we begin to the amelioration of our participation in the coordination, according to the work what is done by CONAFOD. CONAFOD is the network of national organization with more than 400 members, 500 members. So we began to ask to have our place on the round table when there is discussion, and 2 years before we see changement. What we see in last year, for example, our team in the HCC is now six members of our national NGOs with 30% of women-led organization. For us, this is an important point to share, because in the past there was only a men organization led by men, and now we have 30% of women. And we discussed to have more place everywhere. In last year, we have able to have 2 members in ICCG, Intercluster Coordination Group. Before it was not possible. It's just for the clusters coordinators. And this is a very important mechanism, because it's the one who decides technically how to manage the priorities, how to manage the fund. So our presence in this group was very, very important to try to have influence to the prioritizations and to try to show the capacity of our members. And another good things for 2 years is we are part of the regional coordination, because our structure is some particularity with the presence of what we call COP, regional coordination, humanitarian coordination. This was only for the agencies, international NGOs, but we asked for the equity, and now we have 2 members for each stakeholders, for each group. So we can discuss at the basic level what the decision is, what the data are collected, analyzed, and that sent to the high level. It's very important to be there, because this is, I think, the first level to influence the decision making. And now the problem is up to now to the clusters, to access to leadership of clusters. Even if we have vote, we organize vote, but it seems it's a really protection of power. For the election, the national NGOs not ready to be voted. And we see this year, there was something not very good, but we try to eliminate the candidate who is very well positioned. And that was not very good. We tried to share this with the HCT, but it's not was very easy. But what I can say, we see a changement, because now we are on the table discussion. Even if we have not the really power to influence the decision, but we try to discuss, we try to share our point of view, and we have the possibility to put our points on the agenda and to discuss them. Before it was not possible. But with the research, we try to participate to the structure of how can translate this, which work on the new structure better adapted to the situation of country. We have that we call a group of efficiency, I think, journalist, and this is led by one of our members. Before that was not possible. And we think this is a changement. It's not that we expect to achieve now, but I think we are slowly reaching that we can expect with the changement.
Great to have some positive examples. That's really wonderful. Thank you so much. Liza, should we turn to you?
Okay. So I didn't want to repeat what I said in the morning. That is, yes, there is something going on positively, but honestly, it's more about like readjustment rather than doing a real reset. So like redecorating the humanitarian system by nice, localization photo. And also before mentioning that, it's important to understand or maybe recognize that is coordinations bring access to fund. It's not the opposite. Mainly when we're talking about localization, we're directly saying direct fund, reaching to fund. No. If local NGOs is been leading the coordination, that's mean they are strong in, in knowledge, in delivering the service. So they are owning the information. So they are stronger in negotiation table. So they will be like well seen. And here we can, building a network, enriching more. But it's like if you are hiding from the systems, all context analysis is coming from international actors. So like how we gonna to reach to direct partnership? So it's key to just recognize that point when we advocate for localization, that we need real start is from coordination. So I would like to highlight a very good, let's say, progress coming from Yemen, and this is a project that is being funded by Swiss Development Agency. And this is a real kind of investment in the system where they are working with the University of Aden, which is my city, to establish a department of humanitarian development studies in Yemen, which is we don't have. So like in Yemen, like all we as a humanitarian worker just coming from different department, energy, let's say teaching, we don't have that department. So this is a very key investment, because personally I can explain how it's like important, because I was lucky to be one of people who are doing master in development outside Yemen, and how this study is bringing theoretical understanding, system challenging to our on ground experience. So this is like will bring a new generation of local leader who understanding the system, so there will be stronger voice, because who are sitting on the table, who are today, who was a student in education system yesterday. So that's why like we cannot talking about localization was really highlighting the role of education to promote, to generate a generation who are able to fight, to lead, and to make the homemade development. I want to also to mention a challenge, maybe sharing like same challenge coming from different contexts. That is, local NGOs unfortunately deprioritizing and engaging in coordination effort, because coordination is about time. And we have like all these restriction on fund. Personally, because I'm chair of Nahda Makers, my salary is not be accepted to be covered, despite the big rule that I do in advocacy. And like most of partners know what I do, but they say, no, we are not covering the chair position. So like with this challenging, everyone is like driving crazy with day-to-day reporting, compliance, deadlines. So like there's no time to absorb the huge number of meeting, information, analyze, gathering, prepare. So this is a kind of time where local NGOs, there's no dedicated staff for coordination, for advocacy, and this stuff. So this is mainly, I think we share it from Afghanistan in Ukraine. And another, it's from language perspective, regardless localizing, the coordination. I want to say about, the terminology that we use it. And even me, unfortunately, use it, but like that's mean like that's not mean that we accept it. Like say we are empowering the local voice. So when you say empowering, that means someone stronger and more mature, helping someone weaker or still, young to be better. So this is even the dynamic, the word that we use, or like engaging local NGOs. So that means someone who owning the system, tries us to engage some people to hear, to give them a space. So like, this world is not, maybe reflecting, unfortunately, the current mentality that is, unfortunately, we didn't succeed to have a one humanitarian system that is really reflecting the local, international, UN as an equal member inside it. One interesting example in that area that is like I've been heard about election process, I think in Ukraine. And like when we have a kind of platforms and there's spaces for local NGOs, we come like, okay, National NGO Forum in Yemen, you have like 3, 5, 4, 6 seats to be there. And then we've been strongly criticized. And sometimes we've been asked to come to a meeting where we like an investigation, how you made that process. It's okay. I know, they want to make sure that is neutrality, maybe some compliance coming on. But if we will be accountable to be sharing the process, how we handle it, UN and NGOs should also be transparent in doing the same. So it's good to be transparent, to declare how the process is being done, but not just from local side. It's this also from the other side. I think it's enough for now.
Thank you so much. No, I think these are very important questions that we need to tackle as part of this around the power within the system and the standards we hold ourselves to across the system. So thank you. Gemma, can I turn to you? Bird's eye.
You can. Whether I'll say anything important is another matter. It's such a privilege to be on this panel and to listen to all of you and to your experiences and to hear things that I think we've heard too many times and still failed to do differently. So just first of all, thank you. Faisal, I think it's your 6th panel in a row, probably passing the same messages in hopes that at some point we will finally listen. So just to say thank you and to the other panelists the same, to Joseph, to Sasha, to Samira, thank you, because we are listening. So a couple of reflections from my side, because I think what you've said actually reinforces some of the perceptions I've had these past months around the direction of discussions, but also some of the challenges that we've got to get very honest about as a humanitarian community if we're going to truly bring about change. One is coordination takes time, it takes energy, and it takes resources. And for so long as we don't understand that or acknowledge it, asking actors to do it, unresourced, unsupported, is frankly speaking quite obnoxious. And that's what I'm hearing at the moment in the global discussions is area-based coordination, and frankly speaking, not just area-based coordination, but coordination led by local and national actors should somehow miraculously happen, right? I come from an entity that exists to do coordination, so I'm living proof that coordination takes time, resources, and staff, and yet we have a double standard. Faisal, it goes back to the point you just raised about double standards, which I'll come back to. So I think the first point that I take away, Kaylin, is that coordination takes time, resources, people, and money. And if we don't have that as a starting point, I don't believe we're having an honest conversation around what this should look like. So that's number one. Number two is the double standards. So we have an expectation of a set of criteria, standards, processes, etc., that oftentimes we believe we do particularly well, or we know we don't do it particularly well, but if we're to yield that space and have another actor do it, we'll critique it all the same. And I think, Faisal, your point there is critical, which is, yes, let's have transparent processes. Yes, let's have standards, because the people we serve require that we have standards, right? The processes have to be good processes. The work has to be grounded in principles, all of that. But let's have that be a co-equal standard to whomever is carrying out that function. And I don't think we're there yet. And I do think we apply double standards. And I think this is hugely important. I want to pick up on a few other pieces and then hand back, because I know we're going to dive into area-based coordination. And I want to reflect on a few things that we've seen in surveys that the panelists have just reaffirmed. Number one, when resources diminish, coordination will be one of the first things that local and national actors walk away from because you're not paid to do it. So you're paid or you're receiving funding from your community or from a donor to deliver services. That's the first priority. And if you're to choose between running a community kitchen and showing up to another meeting, running the community kitchen would and should take priority. And I don't think we've acknowledged that enough, especially over the last year. But it came through when we did, as OCHA, the funding surveys on the US funding cuts and the consequences. This came through loud and clear. One of the first points that local and national NGO responders made was, we will step away from coordination. It's straightforward. I mean, wouldn't any of us, if it's a choice between a meeting and delivering a service and you have 10 less staff, you'll choose doing the service that you were created to do. So I think that's a point that's hugely important that we need to have as a starting point and to understand. And I don't think, listening to you all, I'm not sure that we actually have grappled with what that has looked like over the course of the last year. How many actors did we lose from the coordination space because of that choice that had to be made? Sasha asked the question, who will pay? If there's one question we walk away from this panel with, I think it should be that, because in the discussions that I sit in at global level, the answer is no one. And I don't think that can be the answer. So I would love for that we walk away with that question being a real live question, who will pay? And Joseph, you spoke to the question around what does transfer of power actually look like? And I think we're really struggling to grapple with this in a meaningful way because it looks like yielding. This goes to your point. It's not about empowering, because these colleagues are incredible, wonderful, knowledgeable, wise, brilliant people. We don't need to empower, we need to yield in certain instances, and we're struggling to do that. We're also struggling on the flip side to know when that arrangement may not work and to have that honest conversation when the circumstances are so high risk, are so politicized, are so difficult that having some form of a buffer can actually be helpful. But we don't have that conversation in an open, frank way. We assume one way or the other. And I think, just to go back to where Samira began, we still, 1 year on, have a heck of a lot of meetings, a heck of a lot of reporting, and a heck of a lot of things that take up time and energy. And I think we need to come away from this discussion, from so many other discussions, continuing to challenge ourselves about what really matters. And many of you in the room know me. You know that I push hard for certain things, including reporting, where it matters, where it can make a real difference in the response. But instead of having that conversation, we continue to ask for all of it, all of the time, and not really look to what's making the difference for the people that we serve and what's going to hold us accountable to them, and what does that look like, as opposed to continuing the meetings or transferring them to another level. Because what we've seen in so many instances is we close down one structure, we open another, and then we have more meetings. So how do we truly get more streamlined? How do we truly free up, which I think has been everyone's preoccupation for a very long time? How do we truly free up time, energy for effective, accountable response that needs to be coordinated? I sit here as a coordinator, but where that coordination has to be purposeful, meaningful, and truly make use of the time it takes. Back to you.
Thanks a lot. Great. Okay, I would love to dig into some of the specifics on the coordination changes as that we're talking about. So we will come to area-based coordination, but I think we've seen some really interesting developments in sort of the coordination approach in some country contexts. So Samira, I would love to come back to you. Afghanistan is a context where we have both humanitarian needs and basic needs coordination. How are these approaches working together? Is it working well? And how do local actors look at this? What's sort of your perspective on this approach to coordination? Thanks a lot.
Thank you. in Afghanistan, like both the humanitarian and the basic human needs programming operate alongside each other very well. Because in principle, this allows more holistic response, especially when in protected crisis where emergency assistance and basic services are interconnected. But in practice, local NGOs really experiencing, again, separate planning frameworks like meetings, reporting. It's the same because we have a program under the basic human needs and also humanitarian. So within my experience that we are having, we are reporting separately to do both, even though they are at the leadership level. Both the platform or structures have their own coordination. But when it comes to the local actors, that they are connected with humanitarian structure, with those that they are leading the humanitarian part, and also those they are leading the basic human needs. So we have to be sparing enough time to report the same thing to the both platform. The same issues that we are raising, whether it's connected to the basic human needs, we are just have to report and have meetings with the basic human needs leadership, and the same for the humanitarian. So this is something that in a state that the frontline responder give more time to the respond, or to like as much as they are close to the community, and as much as the efficiency matter, the same as effectiveness. So they need additional coordination to reduce like the time availability in order to deliver the program on time. But that's something that at the leadership level, the basic human needs and also the humanitarian, they are well aligned and they are coordinating well. But when it comes to the implementer as a local actors to be part of those both platform, those both structures, you have to spare time for, you have to have enough time, enough capacity to report to both. So this is a kind of parallel structure, and one of the big concern and also the question within this humanitarian reset from the local actors, even the INGOs as well, that there is no specific or clear line between between basic human needs and also humanitarian. Now there are some cluster or some thematic working groups that are under the basic human needs, and also some clusters for emergency response that they are under the humanitarian structure. So like giving this space or reporting to those both structure is really giving the local actors a tough time. As I already mentioned, and other panelists also mentioned about the staff capacity, about the organization capacity, about the support, financial support, about the leadership, or about the shifting of power, that is the discussion of the humanitarian reset. But when it comes to the implementation, when it comes to the structure or the approaches of these both basic human needs and humanitarian, it's a bit complex. Like it's a bit critical to really a local NGO could really learn that what to do and how to take part and how to really be part of those both, while both are working together. So this is something that happening in the country in Afghanistan, and we are working in this, and we have the questions from the within this humanitarian reset task team that we have to simplify this process. We have to learn that, okay, how they can be connected and how we can, like how this platform could really be simplified, that and their roles should be clear, because now the rules are really not clear. Both are working together, but when it comes to the implementer partner to be part of these both structure, it's very kind of confusing. So this is how we are dealing with. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Samira. And I think this point about the role, we need to be clear on the roles. Coordination shouldn't just exist for the sake of coordination. So what is it we're achieving with the different structures we have? So thanks for raising this point. Great. Maybe let me, Sasha, turn to you. Ukraine has implemented a mixed approach with both subnational and area-based coordination models. How do these structures work together, and what does this look like for NGOs in terms of the leadership of the different bodies?
Simple answer: they don't work together. If be realistically, because in reality, it's two different approaches. So again, I will repeat myself. So yeah, we have a subnational coordination. We have 3 regional hubs, which is a mixed composition of UN agency, international national NGO, where is the chair OCHA and co-chair one of the UN agencies. So this is part of the big architecture. Area-based coordination we have as well, but sorry, I'm laughing because it's Martin in the room who was very much involved into this, and I will talk about this now. But before I will go to area-based coordination, I really want to kind of pick a point from Faiza about language, because I'm not sure if there are any Ukrainians in the room, but it's impossible to translate into Ukrainian area-based coordination. So I'm serious, it's impossible to explain what we are doing in Ukrainian language, and we expect to implement something we cannot even name. It is a 3 different naming, which is more than 3 words. So in reality, we use ABC, but which is also make no sense in Ukrainian. So, but yeah, it's funny, but it's not funny in the end, because then it means that we again have a up to bottom approach, that it is a concept, nice, which is we try to identify and put somewhere. So when, as we recently also in one of the discussion said that like maybe we should to go to the field and discover what we already have, and then to try to put it into some system if it's needed. In reality, so we had a kind of official to recognized area-based coordination modality to place. And they both work differently. In one on the south of Ukraine, it is more involved into the subnational level of coordination. They are more interlinked because the place where is a subnational hub operate, it's also responsible for this area. On the north of Ukraine, we have another area-based coordination place, but it is not part of any of the regional hubs which been established. And this is like absolutely interlinked. So the all connection it's only interpersonal based on the organization or interpersonal connection. So it is one of the very big gap there. In the meantime, in the same time, we have a lot of other, let's say, coordination. I cannot say in structure, but there are something, yeah, existing in the field, but it's not recognized as ABC because it was not part of the official discussion, TOR process, bureaucratic process is there. Even it is existing. And I think what is the biggest difference, maybe I'm wrong, but like in my opinion here as Ukrainians, that like the difference with Ukrainian ABC, it's that we have absolutely eligible government and local authorities who is play a huge legal part of the response, especially after strike. Because sectorial response, post-strike sectorial response make no sense because cluster are unfortunately slowly because it's multi-sectorial response. So ABC in this case, then local authorities plays more role as a ABC because they know exactly their people, their location, and what's happened. If it was hit at 3 building, they can immediately tell how many people was there, what is the need, and it's multi-sectorial needs. It's never be only shelter. It will be always wash, shelter, protection, at least in the very beginning. And this is the difference a bit because like so far again in last 2 days majority response what I've been at least engaged, it was more purely humanitarian actors without local authorities. I'm not a community, I talk specific local authorities who can also take responsibility specifically on area-based coordination because usually humanitarians who operate in this area, it's not always people from this area. It's they could be around, but not there. So, and maybe one more comment, if we a bit go also about coordination and what we already said, and as Gemma said, like about transfer of power. If we maybe in one day we find money who will cover all this, but then we also need to think that participation in coordination doesn't automatically translate into influence. So, because, yeah, I think what we talking about importance of coordination, it's a very basic first step. But then how it really, my participation will be really give me power to impact.
Thanks so much, Sasha. I think this point around participation not always leading automatically to influence is really key. And I think we've heard that, in fact, in a few of the examples that have come up now. And I also, I think, want to just really acknowledge your point around the logic of the coordination model. If we're talking about multi-sectoral response, I think we have to then look at what is the coordination that is best suited for that. And I think this is where we need to be creative on looking at exactly what that looks like. So thanks for raising that point. Joseph, maybe I can come to you next. There is a lot of focus on how local actors can play a leadership role in the response in DRC. Is there sufficient support and capacity for this to happen?
Thank you very much. Capacity means support, and support means funds. In DRC, we see the changement with the support of some partners. In the beginning, we haven't support, so it was very difficult to work as only as volunteer. So we can't have much time to give to the coordination. 2 years ago, we have the first support from a partner, the account catastrophe and if give us the first support, and we have been able to have an office and a small staff. We work every day to our activities, taking note, preparing meetings, doing some reports, and that changed the perceptions of the humanitarian system according to us. They give us more respect and give more importance to our work. That was the first we see as changement. If you have fund support, you can build capacities and you can be more efficient on what you want to do. The second one was when we were able to discuss with Oxfam to submit together a project on LHL, HST. This was a project to support the humanitarian leadership, local leadership. In this project, we have been able to give our activities what we think we can change the environment of coordination. And we have been able to develop some tools and some capacities to change the decision even at the HCT level, because we have been able to prepare our meetings, to have some big meeting with all of our members to discuss and to propose something comes from our reflection, our evidences. So now we think management of data is the power and is the really influence. Why we say local actors have not capacities? Because the one who decide is the one who have data, and the one who have data is the international, is the agencies. They decide according to their data. Local have not capacities. We think if we want to change this, we need to have a support to have our own data managing our data management, and we are creating now that we call data, Congo local data, with the support of H2H. This will allow us to have our cartography of the members, cartography of capacities, to have our statistics. The objective is to be able to demonstrate with evidence that this is capacity we have. We think with this we nous avons droit in French. We are allowed to discuss, to have fun, to demonstrate what we are able to do. And this is very important because, as I see, without evidence, we can't change anything. And without data, we can't have evidence. So the most important objective for this year is to build this evidences, and we are working on 3 main points. The one is to continue to work on this Congo local data. The second one is we are setting the humanitarian digital academy for DRC. We want to build our own capacities in our manner. Because what we see when international comes with the program is usually the superficial one, not the very basic topic we need for the really professionalization of NGOs, local NGOs. So we need to have our program for our members to be sure we have the need capacities and to have these possibilities with evidences to show these our capacities. Please now give us fund to try to demonstrate what we are able to do.
Thank you so much. And I think this point around data is power is a really important one. And it has come up a few times as we've discussed area-based coordination and different forms of coordination. Is how do we manage information and data within the system and across different actors? And I'm not sure it's one we've totally solved yet. So I'm looking forward also to learning from your experience as it moves forward. So thank you. NANA makers have just released a new report on mapping participation and leadership of national actors and coordination. Can you share with us some of the sort of key findings from that, and maybe tell us a little bit about how you think it sort of links to this wider conversation on coordination?
Yeah. Okay, so maybe this is one of the positive progress that is when we advocate for local lead research, and it's more even complex when we're doing a kind of a study that is like assessing the humanitarian system. So like maybe my one of the let's say the challenge that we face it during with developing that study, and this is for Gemma to take note about it. Yes, unfortunately, 4 clusters and 7 working group did not respond in sharing information about how many local NGOs in. Despite like we did have a several engagement like in HCT level, in ICCG, like intercluster coordination, even reach out personally, but we come up like that is we are pioneer the time frame and just we proceed with the study and acknowledging that knowledge. I just had the last version in hard copy, but I gave it to someone of Netherlands who are funding that project. By the way, brother, it's same project that is the local humanitarian leadership that is, we are a partner of Yemen with the Oxfam in that project. So yeah, so this is maybe the first finding that is reflecting the above and down system that is maybe still, let's say the traditional actors is saying that who is local NGOs coming to, like assessing us, the coordination leadership role. So that's why this is a resistance going on here. And it was clearly like, appeared during the process of developing that study. Second, maybe buoyant, it's long study, so I will not go through the whole buoyant, but is maybe the key one. And it's emphasizing also what is being raised by my colleagues is about, let's say the quantitative and qualitative engagement. So one side that is, the equal representative of local NGOs. Why? Like we have, for example, in a city, there's 35 members, only 6 local NGOs there. Where is the equality in representative? In number level. And also in qualitative level, is that a kind of a list like number, or this is a kind of, is the system on country level encouraging local NGOs to express their opinion, or just, like try to restrict them to just agree, which is what's being said by, let's say the senior staff who are leading the UN agencies are leading the system. So this is one of the point that's been raising about the quality of and meaningful of engagement in the system. And maybe it's related to study, but I want also to jump because about cluster transition, which is a second component that is we are piloting in Yemen, and we are struggling with that. System are not responding to doing the transition, honestly. Like from UN lead to national, and like despite we adopt the kind of co-sharing or co-leading modality, so we have a kind of knowledge transition resource, it be a kind of real transition, not retreat or ignoring the responsibility. So at that time we're talking about make the cluster system is like locally lead. then we have the ABC coming approach, and like, okay, so we are gonna to simplifying the system, or we are creating a new layers of coordination. What we are doing, we're talking about, yeah, we don't have fund for coordinations, we need to reduce, be more slim systems, and like what we are doing now. Okay, and when it starts 1 year ago, the ABC, activating hub in Yemen, saying, okay, what's the difference between cluster on hub level? And unfortunately, there was no answer. And this is reflecting the gap between what is going on globally in country level, even among, the actors who are leading the coordination system. So this is the real questions, like what we do. Are we simplifying, or just, like we are reducing cluster, but meanwhile we're creating, a parallel system? That's mean we end up what we did nothing. And in the same point that we need to criticize ourselves, that we're saying that same size are not fitting for all. And this is applying on the coordination system. Even the idea of having one global coordination system, is it fit now, or we need to review that? And I want to provide a good example from Yemen. That is, like, I'm from Aden, and we have 8 districts, and I've been met in one of, local leaders in the one of district in my city, and there was a very interesting coordination mechanism. There was a kind of weekly meeting between the head of district and the leader in that district, and grassroots organization discussing, and businessman discussing the key challenge, and meet weekly to see what is being solved. So it's a kind of really community where private, government, and community peoples coming together, sharing resources, what's coming from government, what's coming from people donations, and this is my process. But when the conflict has been like happening in Yemen, and like there was a big appetite for donors to support Yemen and come to Yemen, the big coordination mechanism coming, UN coming, and this local coordination is being destroyed, unfortunately, because it's been less appetite. I will go to donor, to cluster, to M, because this is a way where if I am cluster member, I will be eligible to be to access to pool fund. This is one of the criteria. So this is also, it's a kind of deep challenging ourselves, and reviewing what we are really do. About accountability. So coordination is coming to make sure that we are not duplicating the service, and also to complement. So we're maximizing the value. But coordination system itself is need to be accountable. When we have issues, sometimes like cluster is not working, go to OCHA and saying, no, we are not the lead organization. We just, facilitating meeting. Go to the lead agency, say, oh, cluster is neutral, so we are busy. So who is taking that coordination system accountable? Is it really effective? Is it really working? When we have an issue with it, so how we can look? And it should be local actors who are making that system accountable. And here, that's why we really to invest in them to be a key, an equal player in that system, not just engaged. Linkage with global platforms is the key. As I mentioned, like, I don't know, in one of my sessions, that is appreciated by ECFA, that is they help my engagement in the humanitarian working group in Isaac level, where I receive directly the reset papers. And when I sit in the HCT in Yemen, the humanitarian country team, if there is a kind of misinformation gap, I'm aware what is happening globally, so I'm able to, negotiate better way. So these kind of structures, it's really giving more power. I'm sorry, but like when we negotiate, because we have access to the source of information, it makes a real change. Investing in local lead coordination mechanism. A lot of donors, UN, I'm just saying, hey, local NGOs, you need to come together, doing a kind of joint advocacy. And in Yemen, this is the 3rd year since we established the National NGO Forum with more than 200 local NGOs from north and south, with very politically sensitivity to keep that. And like barely we're securing just the salary of the coordinator. And for this year, we're covering also from our own resources. So you want to say you have to do joint, like organize yourself, but no one is buying to invest on that. So this is a kind of challenging from the context with the study also emphasize about it. Thank you.
I think these points around sort of how funding and coordination intersect are really key. How funding drives the coordination model, how it can really I don't know. I don't know the diplomatic way of saying it other than stamp out the really strong coordination that already exists in some cases. But then I think on the flip side, also this really important point around how participation in the coordination model then relates to access to funding, which I think we've heard from some other colleagues as well. I think is a really critical component of this discussion. So thank you for that. Gemma, maybe I can hand to you just to give any reflections on how kind of what you're hearing fits into some of the conversations at global level, pieces that you're seeing that resonate with where we're going, things that are still challenging, anything else you want.
No, thank you. It's again super informative, amazing to listen to all of the thoughts. And I think one thing we need to acknowledge is it's not a cookie cutter that's going to work. So I was sitting here listening to Pfizer on area-based coordination. A lot of the discussions we have are that area-based coordination is kind of the way forward. You're saying it's another layer. When a survey was done of, I think it was over 1,000 local and national NGOs, it was by Save the Children in March or April last year, at the beginning days of the reset, as part of the review of some of the elements of the cluster piece, they did it in one of the groups. And one of the things I found fascinating at that time, and I would love to see it in some ways redone today, was leading area-based coordination was the lowest priority for local and national NGOs who respond, and there was a lot of actors who responded to that survey. What was at the top was leading and influencing the national coordination structures, right? And I think sometimes we start down a path thinking it's the right path, but we do need to step back and stop and think what is the difference that can be made here. And many of you have spoken to where is the influence, right? Participation doesn't guarantee influence. I think that was Sasha. I love that. And it's true. So leading an area-based coordination group with no additional resources, potentially no connection back to capital, potentially no connection into funding streams, potentially a duplication of other things that are happening may not be the priority. So we need to be open to that. In another context, it may be the priority. So, but let's question our assumptions, number one, because again, for me, that survey was fascinating. At the time, I think everyone thought, oh, local and national actors will want to lead area-based coordination. And it was like number 7, like between there were a further 6 before you hit area-based coordination. So what does that mean? 1, question our assumptions. Let's be real about that. Number 2, I think the resourcing piece, listening again, the struggle we have is this, colleagues. The whole sector is decimated. We sit here today, and every one of us is lucky to sit here in the sense that we have organizations that have had to close their doors. We have partners who have had to cut thousands of staff. We have offices that have had to be closed. And so we know resources makes the difference. But where does it come from? Because every aspect of a coordinated response has been cut. The clusters have been cut dramatically over the last year, cut disproportionately as compared to program capacity in organizations. So that pillar of coordination has been fundamentally depleted, very, very fundamentally. Local and national NGOs are often being asked to then step into the space with no additional resources to come to that. And clusters would rightfully say, well, if we can't even resource the clusters, how do we resource another coordination mechanism? So we've got to have an honest conversation around this resourcing piece. And we've got to challenge ourselves on it. And again, I say this is OCHA. Where does coordination add value? Where does it add process? And we should resource it where it adds value, and we should stop it where it adds process, and challenge ourselves on what that equation looks like. A couple of other pieces. I found it fascinating, Sasha, when you said that you can't translate area-based coordination into Ukrainian, and then you spoke to the role of local authorities. And I'm going to say something that not everyone in the room will agree with, but I'm known for that, so it's fine. I would imagine, Sasha, that those local authorities have a name for what they do, and it's not area-based coordination. And this is one of, I think, actually the points of tension that we have. We often speak about the role of local authorities in area-based coordination. Local authorities do decentralized governance, or the name for it that they have in the context that they work in. They don't do area-based coordination. That's our name for something that we think should happen in a geographic location. And where local authorities, this is my view, and I'll be very firm on it, where local authorities have the capacity to lead coordination, whatever you want to call it, whatever they want to call it in that place, we have to fundamentally question, do we need another form of coordination? Because for me, the discussion around area-based coordination is, where do we need area-based coordination from a humanitarian perspective? And I'll come back to some of the other points around humanitarian development that Samira raised in Afghanistan. Where do we need humanitarian area-based coordination to deliver an effective, accountable, quality humanitarian response? And if the local authorities are doing a wonderful job coordinating, or a pretty damn good job, because we would be hard pressed to do a wonderful or a pretty damn good job ourselves, we need to consider stepping back, moving away, and saying, that's covered. So where are we needed? Where is our form of area-based coordination needed? And I don't think we now are in a position where we often talk about kind of attaching to local authorities coordination and calling it area-based coordination, as compared to saying, maybe that's a place where that's covered. And maybe there's another place over here where non-state armed groups are in control, who do not have governance structures, who are not capable of caring for their own people, or do not care to, or the government in this particular area does not care to look after its own people. That's where we need to be looking at area-based coordination, in my view. So really having an honest, hard look about what's needed where and what we call it, because what we call it matters, and calling something area-based coordination that's actually some form of decentralized governance is not doing justice to what those authorities are doing. So I really challenge us on that piece. Maybe just a couple of last pieces on the humanitarian development and the basic human needs in Afghanistan. Samira, it's so interesting to hear you. And I think we've appealed for so long for NGOs to be engaged in the development space, or the quasi-development space, which is basic human needs in Afghanistan. But then when it comes, it does pose this problem of, there are then two systems that you're expected to show up to, the two meetings, and sometimes they're on the same topic. Here again, as with what I just said on area-based coordination, I challenge us. What do we truly need? And it shouldn't be both. It really shouldn't be both. And it's not merging. Because if we're in a situation where the basic human needs approach is adequate, is funded, is right because it's longer term, then let's really question if we still need the humanitarian. And if we are holding on to the humanitarian for the sake of it, let's let it go. If we're holding on to it because we know there's an issue here with principles, that there's an issue with ensuring that women are able to participate in the humanitarian response in a principled way in Afghanistan, let's keep it because we have a reason. Please, let's look at switching, not merging. Trying to bring everything together just means we're all trying to use the meager resources we have less in a more confused way. Let's look at switching when one thing's not needed, and having really honest conversations about that. And that's my last point, is we do not have the luxury of having everything everywhere. We do not. We had less funding last year, and some of you have heard me say this, but I'll say it again, or about the same as we did in 2016, 10 years ago. So after a period of growth, which was important, which was necessary because the needs were there, we are in free fall. So we have to question, really, what do we need where? And that is my appeal to all of us. Then who is best placed to do that? And then how do we resource it? And if we ask those three questions, I do believe we can resource what's required, but I don't think we're asking the questions enough, which means we're asking to resource everything, everywhere, and that is not going to happen.
Thanks a lot, Gemma. And I think the order of those questions is also really important. It's first, what do we need? Who to do it? And then how do we resource it? It shouldn't be the other way around. I mean, the resources shouldn't be driving the funding. I mean, there are elements that will dictate it to some degree if we just don't have the capacity to mobilize funds for the coordination structure. But it should be fundamentally what coordination model is right for the context. Okay, I'm conscious that we spoke a lot from up here, but I really wanted you to have the chance to hear from our distinguished colleagues. I would love to open up to the room now and hear some of your experiences. We know we have a wealth of expertise in the room. I have a few people who have very kindly agreed to share some reflections already, so I might turn to them. But please do feel free to raise your hands after. Colleagues online, you can post questions in the chat and my colleague Jeremy will help make sure I can see them, and or raise your hand if you would like to come in online. So first I might invite Cecilia from the Sudan NGO Forum to share some reflections from her context. Over to you.
Thank you, Kaylin, and thank you, colleagues. Yeah, my name is Cecilia with the Sudan NGO Forum, and I think everything that you're saying really resonates with the conversations that we're having in Sudan as well. I think one element that I think has been a little bit overlooked in this conversation is the kind of political dimension of it and how the funding is linked to governments which have their own motivations, and how that as a result kind of creates the contingencies or the compliance issues, but also the priorities that are often what inhibits local actors to be at the fore of decision making, coordination, and the other kind of topics that have been discussed. So I'm curious kind of how this is being addressed. I think on one hand from the panelists, what would your recommendations be to kind of looking at how to overcome this? How could funding perhaps be channeled differently, or how to disconnect it from the political pieces that are restricting local leadership on this? And also from Gemma, from the global side, how this is being factored into kind of new models perhaps that are being discussed under the umbrella of the reset.
Thanks a lot, Cecilia. Maybe we can take a couple questions or reflections and then I can turn back to the panelists. Feel free to raise your hands, colleagues. Okay, let's do 1, 2, 3. I'll start with the colleague in the back, please.
Hello, I'm Daniele from IOM. I want to thank you, especially for the colleagues that come from the field, for the important points. I wanted just to disagree with Gemma about the local authorities. I don't think we need to see local authorities as this big machine that comes top down. We're talking about locally usually elected, so they not necessarily come from the government, central governments. We're talking about, I don't know, the head of the civil protection, for instance, in some areas, the imam, the priest, those kind of authorities that are recognized by the people that are there. And they can do, and they do maybe a tremendous job. And what Faisal was saying, they had this kind of system, and then we arrived, and now the system was destroyed, and now we kind of want to bring it back with localization. And specifically on localization, I think that as what was said here, participation doesn't mean power to change or influence, not even money, I think, necessarily means that. There's a lot of subcontracting that we do with the money, but not actually, shaping decision. I think that we should look together on what we can measure as the shift for the power. What we are going to look when we want to measure if that change happened or not. Because now we're measuring participation on how many coordination forums we are present or not. We're measuring funding. That's easier to measure as well, but that doesn't mean shift of power for local population. Over.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Véronique de Geoffroy from Group PRD. I think your last point, sorry, I don't remember, was a bit provocating, saying that maybe if local authorities are in place, there is no need to duplicate, nor to try to put in place a kind of area-based coordination. I think that a normal local authority is not trained to deal with disaster or crisis situation, yeah. Plus to deal with multiple actors coming from all around the world. And I think that we as humanitarian have a responsibility to support, not replace, but support, because yeah, for me, that would be the role of a coordination body from the international system, supporting local authorities where possible. I know that there are discussions with politics in some places, but in many places, they are dealing with what happened on their territory. And for me, we can discuss about what name to give to that, but it's a coordination based on an area with multiple actors interacting. So I think it was a bit provocative the way you presented your thoughts. So you were waiting for reaction, I guess.
Thanks very much. We'll do maybe one more and then do a quick round back, and then I see you in the back. Great. Okay, 1, 2. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Martin. Working also with Veronique for the group URD and speaking maybe more with my NGO coordination background. And so with that expertise of basically being involved in the coordination, shaping also coordination architectures. And so I would like to reflect on one thing. Gemma, you mentioned that, okay, coordination takes time, energy, and resources. I fully agree. One element that I think is very important also to give credit to coordination is the skills that are required for that, but also the expertise. We spoke about setting models that are fit for purpose. Okay, but who is able to do so when it's time to think about that? And I think that it's really an important one that we need to consider. So yeah, just to say that we need resources, but we also need people that are able to contribute to those conversations. And I've had the chance to set NGO forum, also to work at setting coordination architecture. And basically what I wanted to say is that these are tools, these are means, but maybe the first thing first is when you speak about coordination, on area-based coordination, I've heard as many definitions as the number of people I spoke with. So what do we, when we speak about coordination, what is it that we are trying to achieve together? And from the moment we are clear, we can design, we can set the coordination architecture, which is fit for purpose, and also then make it evolve as the priorities evolve. I think that this is also an important point to highlight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With permission, I'm going to contradict myself because I've just seen the clock and we technically have 3 minutes. So rather than coming back to the panel now, I might take the 2 final questions in the room and then hand it back to the panel. So to the colleague behind, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just to share experiences concisely and clearly and briefly. My name is Riyad Baja. I'm working with the UN here in Geneva since more than 20 years ago on behalf of the international society, such as I am humanitarians. Yes, about the local governments. Yeah, indeed, nowadays, local governments and cities play important role. And we can say that, yeah, I can share with you that we launched another NGO, Swiss Foundations. I can share with you a global cities hub. Before that, also, we were in the Big Three administrating on behalf of Geneva City various network of cities. But why? Because the international negotiations mainly on climate change, which was a big crisis. Then for that, to make kind of alternative for local governments and cities in the humanitarian sectors, it's possible to work on that level, whether the federal system or no. And there is other network of cities in the continental level. This is what I want to share. That there was also instrument have been adopted during UNFCCC COP on we have, yes, some network of cities and local governments. We can also, and municipalities.
Thank you very much. Please.
Michael Hayden, LM International. Really a question to Faiza and Sasha. Thank you for your presentations. I read with great interest this localization baselining that I know ICFA was involved in both Ukraine and Yemen, at least sort of talking about where we're starting and how to measure how good. And there were some really good recommendations in that report in terms of coordination. Has that report helped? Does it help you kind of look at how well we're doing in your two contexts? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, maybe we can do a quick round of responses. I might turn first to Samira online for any points you would like to reflect on. So we had some questions around sort of politicization and funding, a few points around local authorities and how we engage with them, their role in the coordination space, how we work together to design models that are fit for purpose, the role of cities, and any reflections on the ICFA report. I offer all of the questions to all of you as you would like to come in. So Samira, perhaps we'll give you the first word if you're still with us. It's just disappeared from my screen all of a sudden. Okay, we will maybe go to Sasha for any points.
As I brought local authorities, I feel I have to reflect. I think on a point of local authorities, I will also disagree with Gemma and more agree with the colleagues from the room, because first of all, in Ukraine, it's decentralized local authorities. So it means we have a lot of power exactly in the local authorities. Then I will agree as well with that local authorities do not know humanitarian response. And I think this is why we still need humanitarian support a lot, like OCHA coordinations, let's say in big work coordination, because it's still about money. And I don't believe that any humanitarian actors will give money to local authorities and don't want to be present in terms of accountability. Maybe it's an ideal world that's existing, but I don't believe it's possible. So that's why I think to say if you want to have a healthy or would like to have a healthy environment, I think it's all stakeholders still need to be all together, as well as, again, because local authorities do not know what is humanitarian, way back to humanitarian principles. So it needs someone who will explain why you cannot, how you should allocate the money, let's say, if super simple. Even again, I believe that question about local authorities, that's why I start when I talk about local authorities, I highlight that I talk from Ukrainian perspective, because I know that it is elected government. I know that, and sorry, side very short example why I'm always angry about standardized security training for Ukrainians, because it is a question. You approach a known checkpoint. Sorry, it's not Ukrainian case. Every checkpoint you approach, you know the name and the type of blood of the guy who is standing there. So that's why I talk about local authorities because it's a bit different political context there. And I will probably, in sake of time, I will answer to colleague about baseline. First of all, I'm a bit biased on this because I presented in 2023, I was with NGO Resource Center presenting the first baseline. So of course, it's the best baseline ever, better than any other country. So simple answer. But if seriously, yes, it's helpful because exactly it's opposite. The baseline do not have any recommendation. So they give data that other any actors, doesn't mean only NGOs, they can decide what to do. And I think it's, as any baseline, it gives something as a start point. Even it is still questionable, like the all measurement, because it's numbers of participants growing, and statistically, who knows sociology? So if much more responders, it impacts the result. So that's why it's still measurement, but you not ask the same actors because it's more and more localization. So it is a progress still. It's showing. And the main, probably with baseline, it's still a big advocacy piece for localization because this is what we need. After all, like you need to any donors to talk. Even it's very known truth, but finally you need reference. You need some paper to show and say like, no, it says there. That's why I think it's still valuable, any research, and I believe it's the same for the country. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sasha. And just to say, we are trying to get Samira back, but I will hand first to Joseph, please.
Same question?
Any of the questions and comments, I think, from the audience, but also any final remarks you would like to make?
Thank you. Final remark? Yeah, thank you. What can I say? If we need to have local actors powered, we need to support their strategic plan. Because with the strategic plan, they can do the plan to reach capacities, to reach power, and to influence really the coordination. We can talk about ABC, about coordination, but if the local actors are not found capacity to organize the real coordination, it will be a failure. So the first is to be sure they have fund capacity to do what they need really to do, and to be able to change this. This is why we think if we want to change really, we need to listen to local platforms, local network, to listen to their program, to listen to their planning, and to fund the institutional capacities, so they can develop all need to be really the really actors of changement and the really managers of the humanitarian system.
So much, Joseph. Faida.
First point to explain maybe for you, Jamal, why as a local NGOs we are not interested to lead the ABC, because we feel we get irritated from being a field level. For example, like several of analysis is being data collected by local NGOs voluntary to just satisfy cluster to get a recommendation to pull fund. So we do it for free, and then so they take the data and analyze it and say wait for national report, and we don't know how they made it, and just we keep ourselves on that implementing level. For authorities, personally, I'm in a favor for engaging and working and try to bring the responsibility back to the government. And this is interesting thing in coordination, that is it should be temporary. We should even that in the conflict session especially, it's limiting our engagement with the government and different authorities, but we need to keep pushing back, because this is how made development should be done, not just by government. It's also about private sector, which is unfortunately needed. But in Yemen, like, private sector has been totally ignored, and when funding decline happened, the system remembered that, we need to bring the private sector to contribute to fund. Regarding to your questions about study, it was super useful. First of all, it was a learning process for us to do the research. We thought that easier than this, but it's a kind of expertise, knowledge to doing a research. And this is part of localization to generate research, context research by local NGOs. And also we now deeply understanding how resisting is the system. And that's why in the morning I was mentioning about, is the system is ready to that transition? And when we're talking about capacity strengthening, we need also to do capacity strengthening for international actors to be ready to accept and support that transition. Thank you.
So a couple of points. I maybe it was terminology, but I don't think on the definition of local authorities we disagree. I don't understand the disagreement. But yes, local authorities come in 1,000 shapes and forms. I use the term decentralized governance to mean an authority on the ground that is empowered to do work of an authority, whatever that looks like. So I don't think that's a disagreement, just on terminology. On the rest, I think there is a disagreement, and I think this is a really healthy, very important discussion for us to have. We do not have the resources to be everywhere. So we can say that a local authority, if there's an issue of principles, absolutely. Absolutely, right? And to go back to this point, part of the reason why I say this is we often stay in places where there may no longer be that justification, where it left 5 to 10 years ago, where the conflict ended, where things have normalized somewhat, not perfectly, but normalized, but we're still there and we're still coordinating. When a local authority is, again, not perfectly, but please point me to a place where we're perfect. We're not. So if a local authority is doing that to a good enough standard, challenge ourselves to step back. That's what I'm saying. Because there is another place over here, and I have the data to back this, where we are absolutely not present and should be, where we have people who are facing life-threatening needs and we are not there, where the authorities cannot coordinate, will not coordinate, have no interest in coordinating, do not care for their people. We are not there. But we're over here in the place that's post-conflict, 5 to 10 years. Authorities are trying. They probably have some development funding. The World Bank might have come in, but we think it's not quite there, so we're going to accompany them the last step of the way. And that, for me, is a question of priorities. It's not saying any of it is perfect. None of it's perfect. And yes, there are many local authorities who, even with goodwill, become overwhelmed. Absolutely. So that's a justification, right? That's great. If we've got a justification, let's be there and let's look at what that coordination should look like. But please, let's challenge ourselves. We're not in places we should be. We're leaving some places we should be staying, and we're staying some places we could potentially leave. That's what I'm saying. And how do we challenge ourselves to look at that? This will never be neat and tidy, never. But I think that we've got to be willing to say that. And Faisal, I actually love what you just said. But this is where I don't use the term coordination. That is about it's not a word, I'm going to use it anyway, re-responsibilizing the authorities. This is your population, these are your people, this is your job. Now, we've been here, we've done this, now it looks like this. Civil society is here, will be here forever, will look like this in the way that that civil society should. But this is particularly for us, the international community, but also us, the humanitarian community. When is there no longer that need for us to bring the coordination that delivers a principled response? Because there are the vast majority of places we work now, we need that. The vast majority of places we work, either large or whole of the country is controlled by non-state armed groups, de facto authorities, plethora of groups that have no interest in caring for civilians. And that is important. But where the authorities over here have got it, or mostly got it, let's try and walk away. Not in an irresponsible way, not overnight. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying let's challenge ourselves, because there's this place over here where we're not. So I don't think that's a disagreement. I think it's a conversation that requires unpacking, because what it's saying is let's put the responsibility back on the authorities who should be caring for their people. That's the first responsibility of a member state. The first responsibility for humanitarian action is the member state. 46-182, it says it crystal clear. And yet most have walked away from that responsibility. So how do we bring that back? Where it's possible, where they're doing a good enough job, how do we responsibly, ethically exit? And where we're needed, how do we ensure that we know why we're needed and what we're there for? That's what I'm saying. I don't think that's a disagreement. I think it's a discussion and a dialogue. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Gemma. We are not able to get Samira back, but she has very helpfully sent a few final remarks, which I will now read on her behalf to you with permission. So key takeaway from her is coordination systems will only become lighter and more effective if they are designed around operational realities and local leadership. This means simplifying structures, aligning humanitarian and basic needs coordination, and investing in national actors who are already sustaining responses on the ground. Without these adjustments, coordination risks becoming an additional burden rather than an enabler of effective humanitarian action. I think those are perfect words for us to conclude on. I will not try to summarize the entirety of the discussion today, but just to say maybe 2 words of the things that I certainly will leave with. I think one is that coordination is not free. It takes time, it takes people, it takes energy, and we need to acknowledge that and build that into our system. I think very much echoing Samira that as we pursue reform, let's not make it more complicated. Let's not add even more layers and more process on top of it. Coordination needs to be useful. It needs to be fit for your needs as local actors. And it needs to be real. And I think this point around participation not guaranteeing influence is really key. Let's not do performative localization, performative leadership of these structures. Let's be serious about it. And then finally, I think the most important takeaway is we need to listen to the experts, and that's really all of you that are doing this every single day. So big thanks again. I really appreciated hearing from your experiences and those of you in the room. Thank you so much. Let's keep the conversation going. All the best.